Welcome back. Senator Bernie Sanders announced the winners of his 15th annual State of the Union essay competition after receiving 475 essays across 25 Vermont schools. I spoke with some of the top placing students about what they think it's important for teenagers to be involved and aware of our political environment.
I think is a serious problem, and because free speech is really one of the most important elements in our democracy.
I think it's important because the only way to really enact change, both locally or in a state, on a state level or on a national level, is to just making sure your voice is heard and making sure you're emailing your senators and joining these coalitions and making sure the legislature is hearing you.
A Harvard study released this spring noted that younger members of Gen Z are navigating financial hardships, frayed social bonds, and declining trust in institutions. They say fewer than half of Americans under 30 feel a sense of community. Only 15% believe the country is headed in the right direction. Less than 1/3 approve of President Trump or the current Congress, and only 19% trust the federal government to do the right thing. High school juniors Justice Leahy, Ari Glasser, and senior Eli White placed as the top 3 winners in Senator Bernie Sanders' annual State of the Union essay competition. Their essays span the topics of influence of social media on adolescents, billionaires in American politics, and political polarization.
There's really a deep divide between, Democrats and Republicans, and even between people of different ages and of different views, and people feel like they can't really connect to people who have even views that are slightly different from theirs sometimes.
There's definitely a lot of animosity between politics, and I don't believe that's really what politics are meant to be. I think that disagreement is healthy, but disagreement becomes unhealthy when you aren't able to look past those differences.
All 3 teens agree that it's important to be aware of what's happening in society, domestically and abroad. Senator Sanders spoke with the students in a roundtable talk about this issue.
I think a lot of legislators aren't speaking out as much as they should be. Lawmakers and politicians need to really take a more active role in speaking out about issues and not feel that they need to censor some of what they're saying.
The fact that in an age that's more interconnected than ever, we're able to access information, and a lot of the times that information is curated towards what we believe in, and we get stuck in these so-called echo chambers that are hard to get out of.
It's like the older generation is always critiquing the younger generation for doing too much or doing too little, or being addicted to their phones, or not doing enough academically. I'm not doing it because of the pressure of the older generations. I'm doing it because I really want to help my generation. So I think we should just prioritize our own generation and find the avenues to be vocal about the issues that we care about so we can make positive change.
And Eli has chosen Colorado College to attend in the fall. He will be majoring in international relations. Justison and Ari both plan to attend college after high school.